Hey everybody, I'm back. I apologize for the break in content there. Just life gets in the way. So today, what I'm going to do, I've showed you guys how to import models into the world as is, and today what I'm going to do is show you how to export models and then alter them to fit your needs. So today we're going to be working with the Blizzard 20th Anniversary Edition content. This is Cold Flame's Edge, the sword that everybody's after right now. It's a one-hander, and yeah, I take issue with this because Blizzard almost never releases decent-looking two-handed swords. They all look like gigantic bricks. So we're gonna export this sword and turn it into a two-hander, and yeah, see how that goes. So I've gotten this to work once before, so I'm going to try to mimic those results. This is going to be a longer form video, um, so just if you don't like watching me do stuff in Blender and you already know how to use that, or graphical designer or whatever, feel free to skip ahead. I'll be sure and put time stamps in this video so you don't have to watch me meander around with Blender all day, and we'll get to the nuts and bolts of that. But anyway, so the first thing you're going to want to do is, again, export your stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and just clear this out. This is the directory that I have WoW export pointed to up here. So yeah, weapon, object components, item, WoW export, right? And we're going to go ahead and export the M2/WMO, and that's going to populate this here. And then the other thing we're going to do, so the only thing that we need this for is the BLP. And the problem with the way that WoW export works is it works perfectly. So what that means, what I mean by that is that in here, under WoW export, it's got all the different stuff that gets exported, all the assets that are attributed to this item. So you saw in here that we have for weapon armor reflect BLP, the M2 file, which is the model itself, a JSON that I think works with the animations. And as a quick disclaimer, we're going to do this without animations because I have not yet figured out how to make animations work when you import them. The skins and basically that's all the mapping on where the textures and stuff go, or what the skins are doing. Um, so it can get a little bit confusing. I'm going to break this down as simply as I can understand it with my finite brain. Um, the sword in M2 format has a BLP, which maps everything and puts everything together from here and from the other directories, which in here, this sword specifically comes with an unknown directory, and this is actually the texture of the sword. So it's going to have all the nice little shiny things that come off. You see this silver in here and the blue on the handle and all that. That's all in this one PNG. That is actually a UV map export, and the BLP basically maps this out. And that's in a nutshell what these BLPs are doing. They don't necessarily have the picture themselves or the textures, but they tell the M2 file where to put the textures, basically. And they do that by pointing them to the directory that this is in. So you want to keep your BLP and your PNGs together, basically, in order to make that work. Um, and so and that just goes to show you kind of want to keep this clean. Like these are from, I'm pretty sure, Thunder Fury, and I was playing around with that because that's an old model weapon that did have animations, and it basically was I figured, well, hell, if it worked in Classic, I should be able to get it to work in Waddle K, but I just haven't had a very good amount of luck with that. So I'm going to go ahead, clean up my directory real fast so that we know for a fact that everything that I go to import, the world stuff you can leave alone. That's got nothing to do with your items, and same with creatures and dungeons as well. But spells sometimes will be attached, and of course there's this unknown folder. I think that's just Blizzard being crafty um, and trying to obfuscate what their stuff looks like. Fair enough, I get it. I mean, here I am right now doing exactly what they probably would not like me to be doing. So anyway, that's kind of how all that fits together. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab this BLP file from here. We're going to say export. It's going to populate. You just saw me delete all that stuff. Well, here is the BLP that we just lost. Strange. Didn't seem to populate everything that it was supposed to. It's got all this, but it doesn't have. Yeah, sure shit. Let's try that again. Oh, I know why. Okay. So take what I just said and throw that out the window. I guess the BLP basically does have it mapped in there, the actual PNG and stuff. That's why I'm not seeing it. So yeah, if you notice, there's no PNG file in here. Fair enough. So the skins basically have all that stuff, and the BLP maps it. All right. So the next thing we're going to do, we have our BLPs. Now we want to export this as an object, and that's so that we can work with it in Blender, because Blender does not use, it does not work well with BLP. I think it's a proprietary file format that Blizzard has, and here we go. And so to work with it in Blender, we have to export it as an object. And now in here, you'll see there's a .obj file. There's this PNG here, and the PNGs work directly with the MTLs. So I got a little bit confused there. I apologize. So if you're working with something with an MTL, you need to basically make sure that the MTL and uh, the PNG, the actual UV map, are together. And so now in this unknown folder, we'll have the PNG. Yes, we do. Okay. And that MTL is basically told to map exactly how it exports. So it's literally looking for here in an unknown folder. It's looking for an unknown folder in this MTL file, which is just basically a glorified text file, and I'll show you that here real quick. So yeah, you see it's basically saying etc., 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 unknown, and then the 6049813 PNG. That is literally your the folder we were just in the PNG that we were looking at. And so it uses Armor Reflect and this here too. I haven't had too much issue with these, so we're gonna kind of ignore that for now. And then we're gonna open this up in Blender. So this is Blender. We are using 3.3.12 if you want to follow along. So that's the commands change like the wind with Blender. It drives me up the wall. So I've decided to stop playing the game. I just use this version of Blender until it no longer works with something. I'm going to continue to use it. So let's take a look here, and we're going to import wavefront.obj, and I'm going to copy that file directory. And because everything was exported in the correct format, when the MTL file goes to look for the PNGs that it uses, everything is going to show up in Blender just fine. And you'll see that there's actually the textures in there. All the animations are going to be in here. It shows up white right here, but if we change the view to this, it shows you all the pretty stuff that they've added. And like I said, I have not yet been able to make the animations work, so we're going to get rid of those real fast first thing. And to do that, we're going to change over to edit mode and start clicking on stuff that we're going to get rid of because it's just too complicated, at least for me anyway. If you guys know how to, if someone knows how to do this, please reach out and let me know because I'd love to learn. But I've used Blender probably 5 or 6 times in my life successfully. So, and all I'm doing is going through and clicking on these faces, and I'm hitting, you have to have your cursor over it and you hit the L button and it'll take every face that's connected to the one that you're trying to get rid of, and then you can delete it and just hit the delete key on your keyboard, and then of course choose faces like I'm doing here, and it'll get rid of all this stuff that I can't work with. The other option here too is if you do know how to use that, you can of course basically just move it out of the way while you're editing the item itself. But we're going to try to keep this as simple as possible just because I can't prove that it works, and also for time's sake. And you can see that whoever worked on this put in a lot of time and effort. It's just incredible to me that they do that and they don't capitalize on it. Like, this should have been a home run for the two-hander community. I don't know why they try to just make everything so damn complicated. Some of the other stuff too, like I'll show you guys when I log in. Like I've altered, I have finally altered successfully the some of the armor. So I think in my last video I had said something to the effect of I hadn't played with armor yet. I did play with it. I got it to work successfully. There's some nuance to it. It's a little more difficult than swords because you have to orient the armor properly, and so the way that armor works is that okay, hold on, we'll come back to the armor. I'm just trying to get some filler conversation in there that's useful. So we got rid of all that effect stuff, right? Now we're going to go over to object mode, and we're going to select our sword. And just so you know, I am panning around with my middle mouse button. You just click and drag that. If I want to move my camera, I hold shift, and that will basically strafe you up and down, left and right, and you'll basically stay on the same x-axis that you were at, unless you, yeah, basically you're just moving side to side or up and down, but you're not moving forward. So I guess technically that would be, for our purposes, the z-axis. Anyway, so we want to rotate this because if we import it like this, it's going to show up and the guy's going to be holding the sword in a way that he'd be basically hitting monsters with the flat of his blade, and it will look really weird. No one uses a sword like that. So we're going to do that. We're going to hit R with this selected, and we're going to hit X to only rotate it on its x-axis, and then we're going to rotate it until it looks somewhat like this. You want it basically concentric and down the middle with the flat of the blade looking up towards the sky, right? And so that just right there, if you export it like that, you'll hold the sword normally. Now the next thing we're going to do is go back into edit mode. We're going to change to wireframe. This makes it a little bit easier to select stuff, especially for things like scaling and things of that nature where you're wanting to change basically both faces of the object. You want this wireframe, otherwise you may not select all of the important parts of the object, and you'll stretch one out and it'll look great, and then the minute that you come down over here, the top of the sword is going to be like 10 feet that way, and the bottom's gonna remain the same, and your textures are gonna look all screwed up, and yeah, it's just not good. Typically speaking, when you're moving stuff like this around in Blender, you really do want to try to keep your scaling as close as possible to its original, or sometimes you can just do such a bad job of it that it basically ruins the texturing of the item, and it just does not look right. So that's just a heads up from me. Now you see here we've got this little piece that kind of comes up and it's proud to the rest of the blade. We're going to leave that alone. So I'm going to try to go around and select all this, and the easiest way I have found to do that is to stay in what is called vertices mode, and that's up here. You're basically, with this, you're only you're only able to select the vertex that you're trying to select. It won't go by face, which for this, for scaling and stuff, is a little bit finer tuned. You can also go to line mode. I've found that line mode typically bites me in the ass, and it's an absolute pain in the dick to work with. There's some times where it's been useful, but not many. And let's go ahead and just see what happens. Yeah, see if I'm hitting the L key here to try to select everything that's pertinent to the blade itself, which is not doing too bad so far. This is a pretty complicated object compared to what they came out with way back in the day when I started playing World of Warcraft in 2004. That was literally, for years growing up, that was my social interaction with people, because we lived in a rural part of the country growing up, and I just didn't have a lot of people to talk to after school and stuff. So, oh, see, that was the wrong one. There we go. I'm missing something here, it looks like. There we go. Click that. I just kind of spammed L there. Of course, the more you zoom in, the more finer detail you can get, and a little bit more control over what you're selecting. This part's pretty important because you don't want to start editing stuff until you know you've got everything. Of course, there is an undo button, so if you screw up or something like that, you can always go back and fix it with Control Z. 9 times out of 10, it's not a big deal. And that is that part. I think we're good. Okay. So the easiest way to do this, I've found, is first of all, we're in perspective mode right now. That's our camera angle. And even with orthographic mode, it will still push stuff out if you're not careful. But what I have found is the easiest way to do a scale job like this without trying to move the object and bend the blade in such an odd angle is to hit the 5 on the number pad. That will put you directly over the object. In orthographic view, you see where it changed here from perspective. And kind of scroll up, and we're going to hit S, and we're going to hit, I believe it's the X coordinate, right? Yes. So see where that red line just got highlighted? That tells you which axis I just selected to scale. So we don't want the blade to get fatter or wider or thicker. We just want it to get longer, right? So giggity. Anyway, that's scaling the blade right there. And how big was it there? So just for reference, we're going to scroll out a little. There is such a thing as a blade that's too long. I found that out the hard way. So what we're going to try to do is keep this within 2 squares a little bit. Yeah, that's fine. Ah, did not mean to unselect everything. All right, so good there. Now we're just going to hit the G key, and you can see where here the blade basically went down into the hilt a little bit. It's not the end of the world, but you don't really want that. I'm gonna undo that move real quick. And we're just gonna carefully hit the G key and move that hilt, move that blade back out of the hilt the way it's designed to be. Um, and actually, for this, I will scroll back in. The first time I did this, the blade was just, I made it way too long. Way too long. It looked ridiculous. Alright, so we're going to set that back in here so that it fits nicely. This might just be my... Let's try that. How's that look? Pretty good, pretty concentric. We want it a little longer, right? So S, X. There, we're going to take that. And again, it's just kind of like fine tuning. You have to be a little bit patient. So that, I'm not happy with that. You just have to remember, maybe it was fine the first time. You can see because you just have to be kind of careful how you're moving things, because you can make the sword look strange, right? So don't want that. And I'm going to leave it directly in. Come on, there we go. Just a little there. That married up pretty good, and that's almost perfect in terms of about 2 grids. I've found is about what you want. I've never messed with the grid scaling, so whatever the default setting is for that, that's typically around where you want the blade to be. And if you go into object mode, it'll show you how much exactly. You can see there's a little bit of a texture stretch, and we've lost a little bit of resolution on the texture. But considering the state of most of the other weapons in Wrath of the Lich King, I'm not overly concerned, because it just, it still looks really nice. So I'm going to call that pretty good. And we're going to go back to wire mesh, select everything again by hitting Control Z, so I don't have to go through that nonsense. And this time I'm going to, it's just a little wide for my taste. It's probably fine, but this is just my personal preference. I'm going to make the blade just a little bit less wide there. And I did come off the red mark just a little bit up here at the point, but I'm not going to mess with it. I think it looks fine. If it wasn't for that grid, you would not even notice that. So I'm going to say we're pretty much good to go there. You can also make the blade thinner by scaling it with Z-axis. So that one there we just scaled with Y. And then there's also one for basically the thickness of the blade. And God knows Blizzard needs some frickin' reining in with that stuff too. So, alright. Next thing, we don't really have a lot of real estate down here on the handle. And we can fix that pretty easily. So what we're going to do... Now this is where you can get into trouble with the... basically the perspective, messing with the object's shape. So we'll see if it does it here, because I didn't grab the whole object, so we're basically stretching just a portion of the handle, because I think that the scaling and everything for this is fine. It just needs to be a little bit longer, and thankfully it didn't mess with us. But you can have it to where it'll look perfect up here, and then you come to the side and it's L-shaped because your camera perspective wasn't right. So that gives the user a little bit more purchase. We can even, without going overboard, stretch it just a little bit. So you see how I'm trying to mitigate the differential between textures on different parts of the sword. So we just stretched that one side, and now it's a little bit more stretched, but it also stretched the texture where everything up here has remained the same. And that's fine, but you just want to make sure that you're trying to spread out the changes you make so that you just get a higher quality texture job on it, and you're not just stretching out one part of the sword so much that it absolutely strains the living crap out of the texturing. And that's pretty good, I think, right there. That'll fly. So I'll do another video where I try to take another crossguard from a different sword and implement it here and get rid of this Zelda-looking thing. I don't hate it, which is why I don't mind importing this the way it is, but I think it could be improved upon with just a more practical-looking handguard. So that's me, and I'll show you if I can successfully do that without messing anything up. I will go back and make a video on how it was done for you guys. But right now, I think the sword looks pretty darn good. So I'd say we're probably ready to export, and I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So here I have several different models that I keep, and this is the first one I did, and it looks ridiculous. It needs to be deleted. Um, this one is the second working model, and it works just fine. The problem is that it was too big, and so this is hopefully the Goldilocks Moonblade. We'll say third time's a charm, right? We'll say Moonblade 3, and I am going to take everything from the initial export and throw it into, sorry, here. And we're also going to come back to the unknown folder, and we're going to grab those and throw them in here. Alright, now then, now that that's done, we are also going to take and export the actual initial object. While we're editing this and importing it, nothing out of the initial original export folder should be messed with. You shouldn't change anything. You shouldn't rename anything. All of that stuff needs to remain the same because it's mapped to the MTL that we're about to export now. And I'll show you why that could potentially give you an issue here in a minute. And this time, you do want to name it something different. You don't have to, but I've just found that after editing it, it's a good idea to do that. So moonblade3.obj. Alright. And you can see now that we've got our two little files in here. I'm going to leave this open just in case I have to come back and do anything. But we're pretty much, for the most part, done with Blender now. So next move is going to be changing it in the scripts to an M2. So what I'm going to do is copy these, and you can see where I was working on this before. We're going to keep our scripts folder clean. And there's Moonblade 3 and Moonblade 3.obj. So first thing we're going to do is go in here and we're going to open it with Notepad or Notepad++, whatever. That's your MTL file. We don't need to actually mess with this, I'm sorry. It's the OBJ file we want. I'm going to do the same thing here. And we're going to look for use MTL. And you can see here that it's basically calling on this, which is technically the BLP file. And you can ignore the mat prefix on there. That actually doesn't do anything, but this is what it's calling on. Actually, it's this PNG right here. So yeah, we don't have to change the name on that, but for the sake of showing the mechanics of this, I'm going to do it anyway. And we're going to call this MONBLE.png. And then we're going to go in here and we're going to change this to doesn't need the suffix, and we just save it. Alright, and you can see basically this is saying that there's only one texture. So if there's more stuff that has a use MTL file down here, that means you have multiple textures on the same object. And I'll probably get into that when we look at basically cross editing two objects and melding them together, but we're not going to do that for right now. So that should be good, and I'm going to go ahead and copy that into here. And actually, I'm going to go back to my export document here and look for I did something I shouldn't have done, which was rename this PNG. And I just want to make sure that I've got an original in multiple places so that I don't ruin my work, right? So, okay, we should be fine now. Oops, models, and scripts. Here we go. Okay, and there's our Moonblade stuff that we just did. Next, we're going to go to the obj to m2 command. We're going to edit that with Notepad. And again, you can see where I was working prior on Moonblade 2. And all we're doing is changing those two components. You want to keep the .obj, but for the MTL file, which is what this is calling, you want to keep the suffix off of there. And I almost screwed myself. Alright, there. And now we're going to say object to m2.cmd, right? And that generates an m2 object with the skin. And I have not tried doing this without, so I basically have just, for all of these, I keep them together because they don't take up enough space to justify not doing it. Stand by. Okay. again, this is mostly just about keeping everything in the same place. So that's done. Now we have to move it into our actual um, game, right? So we're going to go into our patches folder, go over here, we're going to say patch Z, we're going to open that, and I'm going to go into item, object components, weapons. And you see where I had that unknown folder put in there where I was trying to get the um, information to work so that I could get it with the animations, and it just wasn't in the cards for me. I'm sure I'll get to it and figure it out eventually, and once I do, again, I'll share that with you guys. But okay, so we have everything in here, and it's pretty well simple in terms of what we named it. Now I already have a weapon in here created, but if you don't want that, but I'll take the time to create an actual good weapon, and instead of just a test one. But regardless of what we do, we need to go in here to our item display DBC, and we need to go and fill this out. So we're going to copy that line and paste it here. Alright, we're going to keep this. This is your icon in your inventory. I need to be better about learning those icons, but I just haven't been good about that. And you're gonna, basically this is your texture. Again, you don't put the suffix MTL or PNG or anything like that in there. And this is your model. And instead of M2, you put MDX. Don't know why. Again, Blizzard just doing Blizzard things. I'm sure there's a pretty rationalized reason for it. I just don't know what it is. DB files client. Add the file to your MPQ so it's quote unquote patched in, right? Data dbc item display db yeah, item display info. There we go. We're gonna overwrite the one we have. All right, that is good to go. Now that's pretty much done, but we're gonna have to do one more thing, and I'm gonna just reload here for the sake of sanity here. All right, I'm gonna go into item, select an item, and you can see it basically tries to go and just give you the next available number. Problem for me is I try to keep different categories of things under different number catalogs, and so it always goes to the highest, most latest one, which can get a little bit annoying. So we're going to say 10102, 90102 rather, and we're going to, that's already in use, huh? There, so we'll say 3. All right, I'm going to call this and give it a short description. just gonna make this thing way overpowered. So this is how Kira works. You basically are gonna choose. It's a weapon. It's a two-handed sword, right? Because that's what we wanted to make. Shoot, I forgot the number. Something something 51. I'm pretty sure. We'll go back and look. 68751. Okay. That's the display item we just made. We're gonna give it quality legendary. Buy count. Sure. Buy price. Inventory type. I mean, the sell and buy price are self-evident, I would hope. 17, max count, we don't care. Start quest, no, not yet anyway. Material, metal. I'll get into questing later. I've done it before on Trinity Creator, but I have to figure it out with Kira. It's not a bag. Duration, none of this is going to be something I'm using currently. So we're going to call that good. We're going to leave the flags alone. This is for basically books. Allowable classes. You can change. I mean, I guess technically. We'll keep it Elven, right? Yeah, that's kind of cool. There's the allowable class, right? Oh, that is so interesting. Huh. We'll have to come back to that. Required level, we'll say 55, because I have a 55 level character. You can always go and change this stuff in the database too. Required skill, we're not going to get into that right now. Item level, required skill rank, we don't care. Required spell, no, 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 no. I mean, these are all just restricting stuff so that, you know, only certain things can use it. Let's give it a bit of nature resistance since it is Elven. And shadow resistance since it's supposed to be good. Alright. Scaling stat distribution. I have not played with that. These are different stats you can add. And you can add up to 9 of them. So let's go ahead. We'll give this one intellect. We'll put the value for that at 50. If you know how to balance a weapon better than me, I 100% get it. I'm just doing this right now to show you that these things can be added. And you can verify over here on the right hand side. It's telling you everything we're putting on it. Dodge rating, parry rating. Let's give it some parry. And another one is yeah, we'll call that okay. Yeah, good enough. No armor. This is your attack speed. Right now it's at 1 second. These are in milliseconds. So we're going to give this a quick attack speed because it's supposed to be light, right? So we'll just say 2 seconds flat. I think that's fair. Elven two-hander. That's your range, your ammo type, your max durability. Doesn't need this, but you can put it on there. The sheath, yeah, I mean, basically it'll put the sheath wherever the hell you want it. This is a two-handed sword, right? But what I'm gonna do is give it a one-handed sheath, and it'll still function like a two-handed sword. Damage. That's normal, and you can change it to add fire damage and stuff too. Just know that it will not um, make the sword like burst in flames or anything cool like that. And while we're here, let's give it something fun. Go into spell editor and pick a spell out real fast. I'm trying to think of something that kind of fits. Yeah, sure, why not? 3615. I don't remember though if it has to be. Boar, cat, crab, crocodile, gorilla, scorpion, spider, tall strider, turtle. Oh, perfect. 7993. And you can see it'll create a Treant ally. So, yeah, you can put charges on this or give it a cooldown. It's like some astronomical number for 24 hours. This should probably be a 24-hour one. We're not gonna do that. Well, why not? Let's just take a calculator. Actually, better yet, let's just ask the Googles because I don't feel like doing math right now. Okay, cooldown. That is 24 hours according to Google. All right, and we're good here. So we've got it called what it's supposed to be. We got our entry ID, which we're gonna remember. That's 90103, and we're gonna say execute. What's wrong? Okay, I put too much shit in here. Yeah, it doesn't like long-winded stuff, which is unfortunate for me because I'm long-winded. Um, let's see if that works out. That worked. Okay, cool. All right, so we got that in the database. We don't have to mess with anything on the database side. We're going to keep Kira open for reference. I'm going to move it over to the side just for now. And we're going to go into DBC and go to the item.dbc. And we're going to just added (90103). All right, this is a class 2 item. It's 8 for two-handed sword, -1 for sound override. I've never used that once. For material, it is 1 for metal. For display info ID, 68751. That one. Inventory type, again, two-handed sword. That's going to be 17. Sheath type is going to be 3 for the waist, I believe was what it was. Let's take a look. Yep. Okay. And that is good to go. So we can close those. Go to data. Pull our patch in. Wrong one. Item.dbc. Say open. Yes to all. Close. Alright. That should have done everything we needed it to do. So we're going to fire up the server and see what happens here. Wonder why it's taking so long. Sorry guys, don't know why it's taking so long. You are in the correct client, I believe. There. Alright. You can see this is the old one. It's just a little longer than I'd like. And it's on his back. Which is fine. I also edited the Imperial Plate shoulder guards as a proof of concept, so you can see now he's got neck protection on both sides of his head, and it's just a little bit better form-fitting. This is what it looked like before. Like, ridiculous. So, I think these just look better. But anyway, just proof of concept, it can be done with armor. It's just a little bit more work. So we'll say add item 90103. There's the sword. And there it is. It works just fine. It took the texture. I don't know if it's any shorter. Yeah, it's not. A little shorter. But yeah, see, he's got it on his sheath there. And that's the problem with the damn thing being so long. So I can go back in and shorten that to some degree. It's unfortunate that it does that, but it's just my misjudgment. That's not anything wrong with the process, really. And we'll do a quick test here. Let's go somewhere fun and see how this does. It's almost level appropriate anyway. Ooh, I might be running a little too fast. I might have... How did that have a speed of 0? Oh, hold on. That's why. It's 2 milliseconds. It's very fast. we'll fix that when I can go back and fix that in the database. But hey, look, there's our Trant. So you can see the spells work with it. That's something we just created out of thin air and edited to not be so exclusive in terms of, you know, what kinds of swords look neat and what don't. And I hope that that helped you guys out today. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. I will get the timestamps up on here as soon as I possibly can. But yeah, that should clear it up for you guys. It's doable. We just need to. I got to figure out how to put the animations on the sword, and you know, if you want to stick around real quick, I'll go ahead and do a quick monologue on how the armor works. So the thing with the armor is that your chest pieces, your legs, your boots, your gloves are all textures. They're not actual models themselves. And so you're probably wondering, like, well, then how the hell does the glove stick out and not look like skin and all that? Like, it's changing the shape of your character. Well, that's exactly what it is. It changes the shape of that character's body part and then repaints it. That's literally all that the textured items like the chest piece do. Which is fine. It's a clever way of getting around, you know, having to model several hundred items and being able to basically reuse stuff. But it's a lot more math intensive, and I don't know of anyone that's got any kind of editor for textures on WoW that would do something along the lines of changing a profile for gloves or something along those lines. And that's most evident apparently in terms of like robes. I guess people used to be able to, you know, look up the robe and you couldn't see, like, it was basically just a malformed texture and you could see right through your character or something along those lines. Now for the plate here, and you can see this was kind of a hack job. I didn't really care about the quality because I just wanted to make sure it worked. But what I've done is you have to create each pauldron separately, is how this works. And so that's fine. That's not that big of a deal in Blender. What is a big deal though is finding out how the orientation works. So in Blender, when I exported these, I'm not kidding, one of the pauldrons, I had to export it upside down and like 3 feet below the starting axis in order for it to fit correctly on his shoulder. And these were just scaled down models. They do it for reasons of, I'll show you real quick why they do it. The reason that they overbuild the models, I guess, so large is because they don't know how these things are going to look on another race. So like you can see here that his left breast is kind of proud and a little bit sticking through the model here. Again, this was more of a proof of concept than it was me trying to fine tune and fit stuff. But even with that, I still think it looks better than having a plate pauldron that sticks out the fucking here, pardon my French, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's doable. You just have to play around with it. There's not really a rhyme or reason or a set mathematical equation that I can give you. This is another sword that I created. If you guys remember the last video, we had the little snubby version of this. This is the long version. I think I even had one with a different BLP on it from another texture. We're gonna go ahead and delete this. That is, oh yeah, I remember that. That's one of the first quest items I ever made. Where is it? Here it is, there. So yeah, you can see that's got like the, you know, it looks a little bit more castle floors. It's just a little bit nicer. Now, one quick thing while I'm here I did want to look at. Okay, Some of this could be fixed by changing the grip location. So if we look here, you can see like he leaves, well, in all fairness, I don't know how you would grab that, but it could be fixed by moving it a little. So anyways, hope that helped everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I apologize for the long run time, but that's kind of the long and short of how that works. So I hope this helped. Again, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and we'll get some more content out for you guys so you can use your creative minds and start doing some cool stuff. Talk to you later. Bye.